Okay, we gotta do all the stream setup stuff while we don't play music, because we want there to be a VOD of this one. Yay, VODs. We need to change the stream title as well. We need to get the what we're reading link set up. Live reactions off. Slow mode 3 seconds. Okay. Okay. Bum 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 bum. Welcome Zeldron. Welcome Lone Courier. Welcome Oven. Glad y'all could join us. Okay, so let's get the stream title set. We're gonna change the title of the stream. Dee 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 dee. Update title: Reading Moby Dick on HermitCraft 10 Live. Update all. Okay. Updated. Okay, let's see. Okay. It is very scenic. Okay, status do not disturb streaming. It's just false and I. Okay. Let's see. What do we need to pull up? I'm kind of scrambling a little bit, you guys. Normally, these Moby Dick streams would be at 8:30 at night my time. But as I was going through some messages, I was like, oh, my sister's birthday is later this week. What night was that again? I need to make sure to reflect that on my streaming calendar. It turns out even though my sister's birthday is later this week, the actual party is tonight. And so, which is fine, but it's one of those things where I'm like, I need to go read a story about a whale right now. So, let's see, where were we on Moby Dick? What we're reading? I think we finished chapter 118. So, is chapter 119 gonna be the one we need? No, wait, we read 119. Wait. We read the candles. Strike nothing, lash everything. Okay, we read chapter 122, so I think we're actually on chapter 123, the musket. Yeah, okay. Welcome, Edward Bentel. Luckily, during last night's stream, we got set up for this night's stream, which is actually now this afternoon's stream because of my incredible calendaring skills. Normally, my project manager, NJ Coffee Junkie, and I would have gone through my calendar pretty aggressively and made sure that I know when stuff is supposed to happen. But this month has been a weird one because of President's Day, which our Monday, my Monday calls with my project manager were kind of thrown off because one of the Mondays I was taking Badger out to Dream Theater for Valentine's Day, because going out on actual Valentine's Day is a terrible idea. And one of the other Mondays was President's Day. So this month has been kind of hectic. And, yeah, I'm rolling with the punches. Okay. So. Okay, let's see what we got here. So yeah, we're on chapter 123. So I'm gonna update the pinned link to reflect that. Yeah, Stu, my guy, says happy birthday to your sister. Yeah. Quinn has all sorts of great music. Let me see. I'm gonna post Quinn's Bandcamp here. Quinn has an album called Ignore All Previous Instructions and has at least 1 or 2 singles up there. I'm not sure the exact current count. But yeah, if you want to support my sister and say happy birthday by purchasing some music, that's a cool way to do that. But yeah, let's see. Ignore All Previous Instructions is an album, and then A Prayer for Nobody is a single. Yeah. Bum 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 ba na 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 na. Okay. So, did we pin the what we're reading link? We have to hit manually unpin it into stream because otherwise it won't work properly. Cool, that's done. So our project for during the reading segment here, coal goes in the coal box. Coal box is full. Goes in the doom box. We'll organize it later. Okay. Our project for this stream is going to be to turn a bunch of normal deep slate that's silk touched into cobblestone deep slate so we can use it to make tile and stuff for our build. Because this build is huge. If you have not seen this, this is Bell Labs Research and Development Campus from Holmdel, New Jersey, designed by Finnish American architect Eero Saarinen. And we are using, for the floor in the atrium, a combination of cyan terracotta, basalt, and then also deep slate tile for a lot of the halls and surrounding stuff. So we need an absolute ton of tiled deep slate so that we can do all of these little walkways and paths and crossovers. So that is our current project. Our current project is taking a whole bunch of normal deep slate and turning it into cobbled deep slate for hewing. We're going to grab an empty shulker or 2 to put the completed deep slate into. I'm also thinking we should probably just free up some inventory slots here by tossing the shovel for now and the extra trident. We also don't need these 3 rockets. We'll put them in there for emergencies for later. So that gives us a little bit of wiggle room with our inventory. Okay. Now, the best place to do this sort of work from is you want to start really low and then just jump pillar upward, right? So, do we have anything significantly lower than the water level here? I really don't know if we do. And in fact, if I recall correctly, when I was doing this the other day, from over here, on top of this gravel and this dirt, we had, we were set up such that it was exactly 4 stacks to hit the skybox. Okay, so we've got 2 shulkers worth of deep slate, and then we're going to cobble that. Wouldn't it be faster to just go mining deep slate underground so you wouldn't have to also spend time placing it? The problem with mining deep slate underground is it's more cognitive load. There's multiple tasks you have to be doing. So if the goal is to read Moby Dick while playing Minecraft, you want to have the most streamlined process possible. So I'm just jumping and clicking rather than I'm looking left, I'm looking right. Oh no, there's a creeper, I'm switching to a sword. Like, adventuring, there's no such thing as mining deep slate underground. There's exploring underground while collecting deep slate. Like, it's definitely, it might be faster in some metrics, but it's not efficient for accomplishing the goals of the stream. So if you've never seen one of these reading streams before, you might not realize that while we are in reading mode, I am not going to be acknowledging tips in the middle of a sentence or a paragraph, sometimes even a chapter. So if you tip, which is certainly appreciated, just be aware that it might be a few minutes until I actually acknowledge that out loud. So let's just jump right in. Welcome, Magenta Avocado. Welcome, Mellow Moogle. Welcome, Iconic Anemone. We are about to read chapter 123 of Moby Dick, or The Whale, by Herman Melville, The Musket. During the most violent shocks of the typhoon, the man at the Pequod's jawbone tiller had several times been reelingly hurled to the deck by its spasmodic motions, even though preventer tackles had been attached to it, for they were slack, because some play to the tiller was indispensable. In a severe gale like this, while the ship is but a tossed shuttlecock to the blast, it is by no means uncommon to see the needles in the compasses, at intervals, go round and round. It was thus with the Pequods. At almost every shock, the helmsman had not failed to notice the whirling velocity with which they revolved upon the cards. It is a sight that hardly anyone can behold without some sort of unwanted emotion. Some hours after midnight, the typhoon abated so much that through the strenuous exertions of Starbuck and Stubb, one engaged forward and the other aft, the shivered remnants of the jib and fore and main topsails were cut adrift from the spars and went eddying away to leeward, like the feathers of an albatross, which sometimes are cast to the winds when that storm-tossed bird is on the wing. The three corresponding new sails were now bent and reefed, and a storm trysail was set further aft, so that the ship soon went through the water with some precision again, and the course, for the present, east-southeast, which he was to steer, if practicable, was once more given to the helmsman. For during the violence of the gale, he had only steered according to its vicissitudes. But as he was now bringing the ship as near her course as possible, watching the compass meanwhile, lo, a good sign. The wind seemed coming round astern. Aye, the foul breeze become fair. Instantly the yards were squared to the lively song of "Ho, the fair winds, oh ye ho, chilly men," the crew singing for joy that so promising an event should so soon have falsified the evil portents preceding it. In compliance with the standing order of his commander to report immediately and at any one of the 24 hours any decided change in the affairs of the deck, Starbuck had no sooner trimmed the yards to the breeze, however reluctantly and gloomily, than he mechanically went below to apprise Captain Ahab of the situation. Ere knocking at his stateroom, he involuntarily paused before it a moment. The cabin lamp, taking long swings this way and that, was burning fitfully and casting fitful shadows upon the old man's bolted door, a thin one, with fixed blinds inserted in place of upper panels. The isolated subterraneousness of the cabin made a certain humming silence to the rain there. Oops. Though it was hooped round by the roar, though it was hooped round by all the roar of the elements. The loaded muskets in the rack were shiningly revealed as they stood upright against the forward bulkhead. Starbuck was an honest, upright man, but out of Starbuck's heart, at that instant, when he saw the muskets there strangely evolved an evil thought, but so blent with its neutral or good accompaniments that for the instant he hardly knew it for itself. "He would have shot me once," he murmured. "Yes, there's the very musket he pointed at me. That one with the studded stock. Let me touch it. Lift it." Strange that I, who have handled so many deadly lances, strange that I should shake so now. Loaded? I must see. Aye, and powder in the pan. That's not good. Best spill it? Wait. I'll cure myself of this. I'll hold the musket boldly while I think. I come to report a fair wind to him. But how fair? Fair for death and doom. That's fair for Moby Dick. It's a fair wind that's only fair for that accursed fish. The very tube he pointed at me, the very one, this one. I hold it here. He would have killed me with the very thing I handle now. Aye, and he would fain kill all his crew. Does he not say he will not strike his spars to any gale? Has he not dashed his heavenly quadrant? And in these same perilous seas gropes he not by mere dead reckoning of the ever-abounding log? And in this very typhoon did he not swear that he would have no lightning rods? But shall this crazed old man be tamely suffered to drag a whole ship's company down to doom with him? Yes, it would make him the willful murderer of 30 men and more, if this ship come to any deadly harm. And come to any deadly harm, my soul swears this ship will. If Ahab have his way, if then he were this instant put aside, that crime would not be his. Is he muttering in his sleep? Yes, just there. In there he's sleeping, aye, but still alive, and soon awake again. I can't withstand thee then, old man. Not reasoning, not remonstrance, not entreaty wilt thou hearken to. All this thou scornest. Flat obedience to thy own flat commands, this is all thy breathest. Aye, and sayest the men have vowed thy vow, sayest all of us are Ahab's, great God forbid. But is there no other way, no lawful way? Make him a prisoner to be taken home. What hope to wrest this old man's living power from his own living hands? Only a fool would try it. Say he were pinioned even. Knotted all over with ropes and hawsers, chained down to the ring bolts on this cabin floor. He would be more hideous than a caged tiger then. I could not endure the sight, could not possibly fly his howlings. All comfort, sleep itself, inestimable reason would leave me on the long, intolerable voyage. What then remains? The land is hundreds of leagues away, and locked Japan the nearest. I stand alone here upon an open sea. With 2 oceans and a whole continent between me and law. Aye, 'tis so. Is heaven a murderer when its lightning strikes a would-be murderer in his bed, tindering sheets and skin together? And would I be a murderer then if... And slowly, stealthily, half sideways looking, he placed the loaded musket's end against the door. On this level, Ahab's hammock swings within, his head this way. A touch, and Starbuck may survive to hug his wife and child again. Oh, Mary, Mary, boy, boy, boy. But if I wake thee not to death, old man, Who can tell to what unsounded deep Starbuck's body this day week may sink with all the crew? Great God, where art thou? Shall I? Shall I? The wind has gone down and shifted, sir. Fore and main topsails are reefed and set. She heads her course. Stern all! Oh, Moby Dick! I clutch my heart at last. Such were the sounds that now came hurtling from the old man's tormented sleep, as if Starbuck's voice had caused the long, dumb dream to speak. The yet leveled musket shook like a drunkard's arm against the panel. Starbuck seemed wrestling with an angel, but turning from the door, he placed the death tube in its rack and left the place. He's too sound asleep. Mr. Stubb, go thou down and wake him, and tell him, I must see to the deck here. Thou knowest what to say. And that concludes Chapter 123 of Moby Dick, or The Whale, by Herman Melville. The Musket. Hope you all enjoyed that chapter. That was a little bit of introspection from First Mate Starbuck as he hangs out outside the door of the captain with a gun pointed at the captain's head. Nice little light chapter, you know, with all the other darkness we've had so far. Anybody have any thoughts or questions about any of that? I know this is an atypical time for this stream. For folks coming in late, I kind of messed up my schedule for today. I didn't realize it was my sister's birthday party tonight, and so I needed to frantically move the 8:30 p.m. stream to as soon as possible. So, yeah, that is what we are doing there. But yeah, just as a reminder, this is a viewer-supported stream. If you enjoy streams at this time, the best way to encourage me to stream at this time is via tips. Tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. Personally, I have a lot of fun streaming, but it is hard to justify taking time away from family on the weekend, other than the fact that this literally pays everybody's rent and buys their food and covers health insurance. So, believe me, I would be happy to be here hanging out with y'all either way, but it's a lot easier to take some time out of the middle of a weekend day, knowing that y'all's support is what makes it possible for us all to eat. Speaking of which, I need to go grocery shopping. So yeah, tips would definitely be appreciated. Okay. Once again, any tips that roll in the middle of the chapter, I won't necessarily read in the middle of the chapter, but at the end, we just finished chapter 123, so that means I actually need to update the what we're reading link and repin it. Welcome the Mintus. Also, we had some people rolling in and spamming emotes and all caps earlier. So, yeah, just so you know, I am going to still take some time out of the reading to time you out or ban you if you are not reading the rules of the stream before you post. Please do that. Okay. So, yeah, the next chapter in Moby Dick or the Whale by Herman Melville is chapter 124, The Needle. Next morning, the not yet subsided sea rolled in long, slow billows of mighty bulk, and striving in the Pequod's gurgling track, pushed her on like giants' palms outspread. The strong, unstaggering breeze abounded so that sky and air seemed vast outbellying sails. The whole world boomed before the wind. Muffled in the full morning light, the invisible sun was only known by the spread intensity of his place. where his bayonet rays moved on in stacks, emblazonings as of crowned Babylonian kings and queens reigned over everything. The sea was a crucible of molten gold that bubblingly leaps with light and heat. Long maintaining an enchanted silence, Ahab stood apart, and every time the teetering ship loweringly pitched down her bowsprit, he turned to eye the bright sun's rays produced ahead. And when she profoundly settled by the stern, he turned behind and saw the sun's rearward place, and how the same yellow rays were blending with his undeviating wake. Ha ha ha, my ship, thou mightest well be taken now for the sea chariot of the sun. Ho ho! All ye nations before my prow, I bring the sun to ye. Yoke on to the further billows, hello, a tandem I drive the sea. But suddenly reined back by some contender thought, he hurried toward the helm, huskily demanding how the ship was heading.
East southeast, sir,
said the frightened steersman. Thou liest! Smiting him with clenched fist. Heading east at this hour in the morning, and the sun astern? Upon this, every soul was confounded, for the phenomenon just then observed by Ahab had unaccountably escaped everyone else, but its very blinding palpableness must have been the cause. Thrusting his head halfway into the binnacle, Ahab caught one glimpse of the compasses. His uplifted arm slowly fell. For a moment, he seemed almost to stagger. Standing beside him, Starbuck looked, and lo, the two compasses pointed east, and the Pequod was as infallibly going west. But ere the first wild alarm could get out amongst the crew, the old man with a rigid laugh exclaimed, I have it. This has happened before. Mr. Starbuck, last night's thunder turned our compasses, that's all. Thou hast before heard of such a thing, I take it?
Aye, but never before has it happened to me, sir, said the pale mate gloomily.
Here, it must be said that accidents like this have in more than one case occurred to ships in violent storms. The magnetic energy, as developed in the mariner's needle, is, as all know, essentially one with the electricity beheld in heaven. Hence, it is not much to be marveled at that such things should be. Instances where the lightning has actually struck the vessel, so as to smite down some of the spars and rigging, the effect upon the needle has at times been still more fatal, all its lodestone virtue being annihilated, so that the before magnetic steel was of no more use than an old wife's knitting needle. But, in either case, the needle never again, or of itself, recovers the original virtue thus marred or lost, and, if the binnacle compasses be affected, the same fate reaches all the others that may be in the ship, even were the lowermost one inserted in the kelson. Deliberately standing before the binnacle, and eyeing the transpointed compasses, the old man, with the sharp of his extended hand, now took the precise bearing of the sun, and, satisfied that the needles were exactly inverted, shouted out his orders for the ship's course to be changed accordingly. The yards were hard up, and once more the Pequod thrust her undaunted bows into the opposing wind, for the supposed fair one had only been juggling her. Meanwhile, Whatever were his own secret thoughts, Starbuck said nothing, but quietly he issued all requisite orders, while Stubb and Flask, who in some small degree seemed then to be sharing his feelings, likewise unmurmuringly acquiesced. As for all the men, though some of them lowly rumbled, their fear of Ahab was greater than their fear of fate. But as ever before, the pagan harpooneers remained almost wholly unimpressed. Or, if impressed, it was only with a certain magnetism shot into their congenial hearts from inflexible Ahabs. For a space, the old man walked the deck in rolling reveries, but chancing to slip with ivory heel, he saw the crushed copper sight tubes of the quadrant he had the day before dashed to the deck. Thou poor proud heaven-gazer and sun's pilot, yesterday I wrecked thee, and today the compasses would have fain wrecked me. So. But Ahab is lord over the level lodestone yet. Mr. Starbuck, a lance without a pole, a topmaul, and the smallest of the sailmaker's needles. Quick! Accessory, perhaps, to the impulse dictating the thing that he was now about to do, were certain prudential motives, whose object might have been to revive the spirits of his crew by stroke of his subtle skill, in a matter so wondrous as that of inverted compasses. Besides, the old man well knew that to steer by transpointed needles, though clumsily practicable, was not a thing to be passed over by superstitious sailors, without some shudderings and evil portents. "Man," said he, steadily turning upon the crew, as the mate handed him the things he demanded, "my man, the thunder turned old Ahab's needles, but out of this bit of steel can Ahab make one of his own, and that will point as true as any." Abashed glances of servile wonder were exchanged by the sailors as this was said, and with fascinated eyes they awaited whatever magic might follow. But Starbuck looked away. With a blow from the topmaul, Ahab knocked off the steel head of the lance, and then, handing to the mate the long iron rod remaining, bade him hold it upright, without its touching the deck. Then, with the maul, after repeatedly smiting the upper end of this iron rod, he placed the blunted needle endwise on the top of it, and less strongly hammered that. Several times, the mate still holding the rod as before, then going through some strange motions with it, whether indispensable to the magnetizing of the steel, or merely intended to augment the awe of the crew, is uncertain. He called for linen thread, and, moving to the binnacle, slipped out the 2 reversed needles there, and horizontally suspended the sail needle by its middle over one of the compass cards. At first, the steel went round and round, quivering and vibrating at either end, but at last it settled to its place, when Ahab, who had been intently watching for this result, stepped frankly back from the binnacle, and pointing his arm toward it, exclaimed, "Look ye for yourselves, if Ahab not be the lord of the level lodestone, the sun is east, and the compass swears it." One after another, they peered in, for nothing but their own eyes could persuade such ignorance as theirs, and one after another, they slunk away. In his fiery eyes of scorn and triumph, you then saw Ahab in all his fatal pride. And that concludes chapter 124 of Moby Dick or the Whale by Herman Melville, The Needle. So we had some more folks roll in during that. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Ann Pastry. Safek says, "I love the parts where I just completely lose any clue what's going on." Mellow Moogle says, "The Sea Chariot of the Sun has some epic energy." Yeah, I know, right? He's so
excited. He's sailing east while pulling the sun behind him. And then he's like, wait, lol, what? We got a tip rolling in. Let's see who that's from. It's from Des, who says, hey, Joe, always good to see you streaming. Enjoy your sister's birthday. Thank you very much, Des. That's going to get us 10 away from the next face camera expansion milestone. Tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. Okay, let's see. We are going to get this going now. So the next chapter is chapter 125, the log and line. In order for us to post the next the next chapter thing here, we gotta update that chapter link and repin the message. But yeah, it seems like everything possible is trying to steer Ahab toward home. And it's not that Ahab is too stupid to go home. It's that he's too clever to go home. Which is not good for the crew. It's not good for Ahab. Captain Ahab, too clever by half. I'm glad when I was trying to initially place the voices for this book, I decided to give Ahab the what I call it was the same voice I used for Dracula. It's kind of the extra charismatic cult leadery variation of my own voice, right? Because, like, I feel like that works well in a way because so many viewers are familiar with my own voice that, like, the idea of subverting that works, you know? It's like, if I try to do, like, a spooky voice for Dracula, like Dracula's... The thing about Dracula is he's, like, uncomfortably familiar. Like, when you read him first talking to Jonathan Harker, like, Harker is constantly weirded out that Dracula is doing stuff that a servant should do. It's like Dracula is palling around with this commoner, even though he's a lord. And he's like, I know this guy is Eastern European, but this is nuts. This is not normal. This guy is way too familiar. Did the sound cut out for anyone else? It should still be broadcasting sound. I might have temporarily stomped the wrong pedal there. But, like, yeah, so for Ahab, taking that kind of general tone, but making it a little bit more cult leadery, I feel like has worked well. Giving Stubb the kind of creepy Beetlejuice voice, and Starbuck kind of a deep, somber voice, I feel like has worked well. Draco Kate says, Dracula has turned into a comedy because only the reader knows who Dracula is. I mean... Dracula is funnier every time I read it. Like, realizing that Van Helsing's first name is Abraham, I was like, it kind of seems like Van Helsing is a self-insert Mary Sue character. Because it's like, he's Catholic, but Bram Stoker couldn't make him Irish because no English people would listen to an Irish person, but they might listen to a Dutchman. But it's like, okay, this guy is basically a Catholic superhero that English people look up to. Like, yeah. Okay, so chapter 125 is called The Log and Line. I think we're gonna get into reading that. Once again, feel free to tip if you're enjoying the stream. I know this is a weird time, so... not everybody who would normally be here, and tipping is to be expected. I did not pre-announce this time change because it completely sideswiped me. This has been a wild month. Oh, it's been a wild month, but we're getting through it. Welcome, Ghost Times. We are just about to read chapter 125 of Moby Dick, or The Whale, by Herman Melville. The Log and Line. While now the fated Pequod had been so long afloat this voyage, the log and line had but very seldom been in use.
Owing to a confident reliance upon other means of determining the vessel's place, some merchantmen and many whalemen, especially when cruising, wholly neglect to heave the log, though at the same time, and frequently more for form's sake than anything else, regularly putting down upon that customary slate the course steered by the ship, as well as the presumed average rate of progression every hour. It had been thus with the Pequod. The wooden reel and angular log attached hung, long untouched, just beneath the railing of the after bulwarks. Rain and spray had damped it, sun and wind had warped it, all the elements had combined to rot a thing that hung so idly. But, heedless of all this, his mood seized Ahab, as he happened to glance upon the reel, not many hours after the magnet scene, and he remembered how his quadrant was no more, and recalled his frantic oath about the level log and line. The ship was sailing plungingly. Astern, the billows rolled in riots. "Forward there! Heave the log!" 2 seamen came, the golden-hued Tahitian and the grizzly Manxman. "Take the reel, one of ye. I'll heave." They went toward the extreme stern, on the ship's lee side, where the dock, with the oblique energy of the wind, was now almost dipping into the creamy, sidelong rushing sea. The Manxman took the reel, holding it up high by the projecting handle ends of the spindle, round which the spool of the line revolved. So stood, with the angular log hanging downwards, till Ahab advanced to him. Ahab stood before him, and was lightly unwinding some 30 or 40 turns to form a preliminary hand coil to toss overboard, when the old Manxman, who was intently eyeing both him and the line, made bold to speak.
"Sir, I mistrust it. This line looks far gone. Long heat and wet has spoiled it."
"'Twill hold, old gentleman, long heat and wet. Have they spoiled thee? Thou seemest to hold. Or, truer perhaps, life holds thee. Not thou it?"
I hold the spool, sir, but just as my captain says, with these gray hairs of mine, 'tis not worthwhile disputing, especially with a superior who'll ne'er confess.
"What's that? There's now a patched professor in Queen Nature's granite-founded college, but methinks he's too subservient. Where wert thou born?"
In the little rocky Isle of Man, sir.
"Excellent! Thou'st hit the world by that."
I know not, sir, but I was born there.
"In the Isle of Man? Hey! Well, the other way. It's good. Here's a man from man, a man born and once independent man, and now unmanned of man, which is sucked in by what? Up with the reel! The dead blind wall butts all inquiring heads at last. Up with it! So, the log was heaved, the loose coils rapidly straightened out in long, dragging line astern, and then, instantly, the reel began to whirl. In turn, jerkingly raised and lowered by the rolling billows, the towing resistance of the log caused the old reelman to stagger strangely. "Hold hard!" Snap! The overstrained line sagged down in one long festoon. The tugging log was gone. I crush the quadrant, the thunder turns the needles, and now the mad sea parts the log line. But Ahab can mend it all. Haul in here, Tahitian, reel up, Manxman, and look ye, let the carpenter make another log, and mend the line. See to it.
There goes now. To him nothing's happened, but to me, the skewer seems loosening out of the middle of the world. Haul in, Tahitian. These lines must run whole and whirling out, coming broken. Dragging slow. Hey, Pip, come to help. Hey, Pip.
Pip! Whom you call Pip? Pip jumped from the whaleboat. Pip's missing. Let's see now if you haven't fished him up here, fisherman. If drag's hard, I guess he's holding on. Jerk him, Tahiti. Jerk him off. We all in no cowards here. Oh, there's his arm just breaking water. Hatchet, hatchet. Good it off. We all in no cowards here. Captain Ahab, sir. Here's Pip, trying to get on board again.
Peace, thou crazy loon,
cried the Manxman, seizing him by the arm.
away from the quarterdeck.
The greater idiot scolds the lesser, muttered Ahab, advancing. Hands off from that holiness. Where sayest thou Pip was, boy?
Astern thou, sir. Astern, low, low.
And who art thou, boy? I see not my own reflection in the vacant pupils of thy eyes. O God, that man should be a thing for immortal souls to sieve through. Who art thou, boy?
Bellboy, sir. Ship's crier. Ding dong, ding dong. Pip, pip, pip. 100 pounds of clay. Reward for Pip. 5 feet high. Looks cowardly. Quickest known by that. Ding dong, ding. Who's seen Pip the coward?
There can be no hearts above the snow line. Ye frozen heavens, look down here. You did beget this luckless child, and have abandoned him, creative libertines. Here, boy, Ahab's cabin shall be Pip's home henceforth. While Ahab lives, thou touchest my innermost center, boy. Thou art tied to me by cords woven of my heartstrings. Come on, let's go down.
What's this? Here's velvet shark skin.
Intently gazing at Ahab's hand and feeling it.
Ah, now had poor Pip felt so kind a thing as this, perhaps he'd never been lost. Seems to me, sir, as a man rope, something that weak souls may hold by. Oh, sir, let old Perth come now and rivet these two hands together, black one and the white, for I will not let this go.
Oh, boy, nor will I thee, unless I should thereby drag you to worse horrors than are here. Come then to my cabin. Lo, ye believers in God's all goodness, and in man all ill, lo you. See the omniscient God's oblivious of suffering man, and man, though idiotic, and knowing not what he does, yet full of the sweet things of love and gratitude. I feel prouder leading thee by thy hand than though I grasped an emperor's.
Well, there go two daft ones now, muttered the old Manxman. One daft with strength, the other daft with weakness. But here's the end of the rotten line. All dripping to mend it. I think we best a new line altogether. I'll go see Mr. Stubb about it.
And that concludes Chapter 25 of Moby Dick, or the Whale, by Herman Melville. So, yeah, it seems like Ahab is not doing a great job at ensuring the ship can navigate. The whole... Centauratron says, God himself does not want Ahab to find the white whale. Yeah, there's blasphemy is a recurring theme in this story. Ahab putting himself above God. And it's one of those things where, from a narrative perspective, I think it pays off when God shows up in stories. And it's one of those things where, like, obviously we're not getting, like, you know, burning bush
take off your shoes, yelling at Moses God, but the author clearly intended for all of these direct interactions with the function of the ship. Like, clearly God is trying to give everyone here a chance. And Ahab thinks he knows better. Mellow Moogle says, this book always struck me as, tell me you have religious trauma and need God. But yeah, so it's one of those things where definitely lots of opportunities for him to turn back that he's not taking. There was an opportunity for Starbuck to kill Ahab earlier, which he didn't take. And once again, that's the sort of thing, too, where from a narrative standpoint, it kind of functions like Hamlet. The difference, I think, is with Hamlet having the chance to kill Claudius while he's at prayer, is that Hamlet is like, well, I don't want to kill Claudius while he's praying because God might forgive his sins, and I want him to burn in hell. Whereas Starbuck just basically can't trolley problem. Like, Starbuck describes the entire... He basically... Starbuck's monologue while he's considering shooting Ahab is just like, okay, it's not my place to kill somebody who's about to get 30 people killed. Like, if Ahab was killed by the thunder the other night, that would have been fine, because that would have been God doing it. But I'm not sure I would be acting as an instrument of God here if I kill Ahab. He's, and it's one of those things where he's like, I want to go home and see my kids and my wife. And if I kill Ahab right now, I can do that. But that just feels selfish, because what he's doing, if he acts as a vigilante, basically, is he's taking away Ahab's opportunity to repent. Hamlet was upset about Claudius's ability to repent. Whereas I think Starbuck is still hoping, as impossible as it seems, that if he lets this play out, maybe it'll turn around. He also, though, can't bring himself to actually tell the captain the thing that was his job to tell him either, because he feels like he's then culpable for bringing the men closer to death. And he ends up delegating that to Stubb, which is still... It's one of those things, like, if you're going to do something, you might as well do it yourself. Ordering somebody else to bring 30 men closer to their deaths is the same thing as you bringing 30 men closer to their deaths, really, But maybe to some degree he's deferring to Stubb's judgment of, like, you know what? Maybe I walked past this musket rack, almost killed the captain, but couldn't do it. But if I tell Stubb to go talk to the captain, maybe Stubb will just straight up grab the musket and murder the captain, and then we're done. And then it's not me who has to feel bad about murdering the captain. I'll take command of the ship. I'll throw Stubb in the jail, brig or whatever. I'll have him confined to quarters for the remainder of the voyage. So Pip claims he's a coward, but Starbuck has demonstrated some true cowardice in the last few chapters. Ghost Time says, this is genuinely wonderful to listen to while I draw. Gothic Doubling says, living for this commentary. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Anybody who's enjoying it, just as a reminder, tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. And G just tipped 10, who says,
Here's an Expand Joe fund. Well, thank you very much, G, for the 10. That does indeed get us to our next face camera expansion milestone. So please direct your attention to slot 9, where I'm putting the hot in the hot bar, because I'm about to say howdy, y'all. Grow Hills here, expanding as I always do in Nashville, Tennessee. D-da-dee-da-dee, D-da-dee-da-dee-dee-dee. Let's go ahead and take down that setting up now sign. But yeah, so it's interesting seeing how this is going. And I'm not entirely sure what to make of Ahab basically adopting Pip as his son at this point. That's kind of weird. Because it's like Pip got messed up, like, I think a few weeks ago in terms of the narrative, and he's just been stumbling around with his brain not working for a while. And it took this long for Ahab to, like, notice and feel bad about it. And it's one of those things, like, this is maybe one of those rearranging the deck chairs in the Titanic thing, where Ahab is like, you know what, I want the crew. This also might be one of those things, though, where Ahab's just like, I don't want the crew to feel like I'm going to abandon them if something goes wrong here. Like, Pip is bad for morale, but if I come in and I'm like, you know what, this child is now my own, he came here to work and now he's my son. Pogo Stump says Ahab is pretty self-obsessed, so it makes sense he wouldn't notice much. Well, that's the thing, though, is he might I can't tell how pragmatic this is. Is he deluding himself that this is actually going to be helpful when, I mean, yeah. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. This is one of those things I didn't really think about too much when I first read this book about 10 years ago. And I'm not, like, pre-reading the chapters before we do them on stream. Part of the exercise here is me practicing reading improvisationally. So I can see where my flaws are while reading improvisationally. And in the future, I'd love to do something that's a little bit more structured in terms of, like, books on tape, where I'm actually, like, having the voices planned in advance and put all that together. That's a long-term project, though. That's not anything that's going to happen soon. But I find when I want to do something that requires a lot of structure, I can appreciate the steps or the processes better if I've kind of sketched it out first in an unstructured way. So reading Dracula and Moby Dick like this has been kind of an unstructured, getting my feet wet type thing with reading stories aloud. Because I know I could do it a lot better. And I know there's a bunch of, like, resources for people that are becoming audiobook readers. But my problem is, I'm the sort of person who I see all those things and I'm like, okay, some of these steps seem unnecessary. I can't appreciate their value, right? But, like, if I've done something without those steps, or if I've independently created parallel systems, I'm like, oh, okay, I see. I can better appreciate other people's approach when I have enough information to form my own. Pogo Stump says, I wanted to share, I just splurged on front row tickets to see the Moby Dick Opera at the Metropolitan Opera House in March. That sounds awesome. I hope you really enjoyed that, Pogo. We are gathering deep slate for deep slate tile for our build here. We have a lot to do, and we're getting it done. Dude. Okay, so once we get down to the bottom here, I'll go ahead and update the what we're reading link. We have been streaming for 59 minutes, and we've gotten through a few chapters already. We're making good time.
right behind the conductor. Oh, those sound like crazy good seats. Awesome. Sounds like a fun time. Okay, so we're going to pull these out. Okay, so let's make sure we haven't missed any tips. Okay, we're all set there. Did I repost the tipping link? I did not. I said out loud that tips were welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat, but I did not post that. Okay. Yeah, you can't turn Deep Slate from normal into cobbled without the without a pickaxe. There's no tool in game like that. Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna lay our heads down and dream in game, and we're gonna update the chapter link. So we were on 125. We are moving on to 126. This book's chapters are wildly different lengths. So it's hard to know how much of the book we have left. Ostensibly, I think there's 135 chapters in here, but like sometimes a chapter is one sentence. Sometimes a chapter is like would take me an hour and a half to read. So it's hard to say how much we've actually got left. But we are definitely heading toward the final confrontation. But we're not there yet. So up next is chapter 126, The Life Buoy, which I have just posted a link to and pinned. Okay. So, chapter 126 of Moby Dick or the Whale by Herman Melville. The Life Buoy. Steering now southeastward by Ahab's leveled steel, and her progress solely determined by Ahab's level log and line, the Pequod held on her path toward the equator, making so long a passage through such unfrequented waters, descrying no ships, and ere long, sideways impelled by unvarying trade winds, over waves monotonously mild. All these seemed the strange calm things, preluding some riotous and desperate scene. At last, when the ship drew near to the outskirts, as it were, of the equatorial fishing ground, and in the deep darkness that goes before the dawn, was sailing by a cluster of rocky islets, the watch, then headed by Flask, was startled by a cry so plaintively wild and unearthly, like half-articulated wailings of the ghosts of all Herod's murdered innocents, that one and all they started from their reveries, and for the space of some moments stood, or sat, or leaned all transfixedly listening, like the carved Roman slave, while that wild cry remained within hearing. The Christian or civilized part of the crew said it was mermaids, and shuddered. But the pagan harpooneers remained unappalled. Yet the gray Manxman, the oldest mariner of all, declared that the wild, thrilling sounds were the voices of newly drowned men in the sea. Below, in his hammock, Ahab did not hear of this till gray dawn, when he came to the deck. It was then recounted to him by Flask, not unaccompanied with hinted dark meanings. He hollowly laughed, and thus explained the wonder. The rocky islands the ship had passed were the resort of a great number of seals, and some young seals that had lost their dams, or some dams that had lost their cubs, must have risen nigh the ship and kept company with her, crying and sobbing with their human sort of wail. But this only the more affected some of them, because most mariners cherish a very superstitious feeling about seals, arising not only from their peculiar tones when in distress, but also from the human look of their round heads and semi-intelligent faces, seen peeringly uprising from the water alongside. In the sea, under certain circumstances, seals have more than once been mistaken for men. But the bodings of the crew were destined to receive a most plausible confirmation in the fate of one of their number that morning. At sunrise, this man went from his hammock to the masthead at the fore, and whether it was that he was not yet half waked from sleep, for sailors sometimes go aloft in a transition state, whether it was thus with the man, there is now no telling. But be that as it may, he had not been long at his perch when a cry was heard, a cry and a rushing, and, looking up, they saw a falling phantom in the air, and looking down, a little tossed heap of white bubbles in the blue of the sea. The life buoy, a long, slender cask, was dropped from the stern, where it always hung, obedient to a cunning spring, but no hand rose to seize it. And the sun, having long beat upon this cask, it had shrunken, so that it slowly filled. And that parched wood was also filled at every pore, and the studded iron-bound cask followed the sailor to the bottom, as if to yield him his pillow, though in sooth but a hard one. And thus the first man of the Pequod that mounted the mast to look out for the white whale, on the white whale's own peculiar ground, that man was swallowed up in the deep. But few, perhaps, thought of that at the time. Indeed, in some sort, they were not grieved at this event, at least as a portent, for they regarded it not as a foreshadowing of evil in the future, but as the fulfillment of evil already presaged. They declared that now they knew the reason of those wild shrieks they heard the night before. But again, the old Manxman said nay. The lost life buoy was now to be replaced. Starbuck was directed to see to it, but as no cask of sufficient lightness could be found, and as in the feverish eagerness of what seemed the approaching crisis of the voyage, all hands were impatient of any toil but that what was directly connected with its final end, whatever that might prove to be. Therefore, they were going to leave the ship's stern unprovided with a buoy, when, by a certain strange signs and innuendos, Queequeg hinted a hint concerning his coffin. A life buoy of a coffin, cried Starbuck, starting. Rather queer that, I should say, said Stubb.
It'll make a good enough one, said Flask. The carpenter here can arrange it easily.
Bring it up. There's nothing else for it, said Starbuck, after a long, melancholy pause. Rig it, carpenter. Do not look at me so. The coffin, I mean. Dost thou hear me? Rig it.
And shall I nail down the lid, sir? Moving his hand with a hammer.
Aye.
And shall I caulk the same, sir?
Moving his hand as with a caulk and iron.
Aye. And then shall I pay over the same with pitch, sir?
Moving his hand as with a pitch pot.
Away! What possesses thee to do this? Make a life buoy of the coffin, and no more. Mr. Stubb, Mr. Flask, come forward with me. He goes off in a huff, the whole he can endure, at the parts he balks. Now, I don't like this. I make a leg for Captain Ahab, and he wears it like a gentleman. But I make a bandbox for Queequeg, and he won't put his head into it. Are all my pains to go for nothing with that coffin? And now I'm ordered to make a life buoy of it. It's like turning an old coat, going to bring the flesh on the other side now. I don't like this cobbling sort of business. I don't like it at all. It's undignified. It's not my place. Let tinkers' brats do their tinkering. We are their betters. I like to take in hand none but clean, virgin, fair, and square mathematical jobs. Something that regularly begins at beginnings, and is at middle and midway, and comes to an end at the conclusion. Not a cobbler's job. That's an end in the middle, and at the beginning at the end. It's old woman's tricks to be given cobbling jobs. Lord, what affection all old women have for tinkers. I know an old woman of 65 who ran away with a bald-headed young tinker once, and that's the reason I would never work for lonely old widow women ashore. When I kept my shop in the vineyard, they might have taken it into their old lonely heads to run off with me. But, hey-oh. There are no caps at sea but snow caps. Let me see. Nail down the lid, caulk the seams. Pay over the same with pitch, batten 'em down tight, and hang it with the snap spring o'er the ship's stern. Were ever such things done before with a coffin? Some superstitious old carpenters now would be tied up in the rigging ere they would do this job. But I'm made of knotty Aroostook's hemlock. I don't budge. Cruppered with a coffin, sailing about with a graveyard tray, but never mind. We workers in the woods make bridal bedsteads and card tables, as well as coffins and hearses. We work by the month, or by the job, or by the profit, not for us to ask the why and wherefore of our work, unless it is to be confounded cobbling, and then we stash it if we can. I'll do the job now tenderly. I'll have me, let's see, how many in the ship's company all told? I've forgotten. Anyway, I'll have me 30 separate Turk's-headed lifelines, each 3 foot long, headed round, hanging all round the coffin. Then if the hull go down, that'll be 30 lively fellows all fighting for one coffin. A sight not seen very often beneath the sun. Come, hammer, caulk, and iron, pitch, pot, and marling spike. Let's do it.
And that concludes Chapter 126 of Moby Dick, or The Whale by Herman Melville, The Life Buoy. Let's see, we got some other messages that rolled in here. Monsieur Limpe says, "The carpenter isn't too fond of the shoemakers, I see." Pogo Stump says, "Also wanted to say how much I appreciated your video with Allison. Hope you make more videos like that in the future." I am actively working on improving my business card design and my website to help me look legitimate to people who do cool stuff like that. Allison had been watching HermitCraft since like season 1, and so it was not a challenge to prove that, like, hey, if you come on my show, I've got an audience and I'm not going to waste your time. But for, like, talking to people in, like, Nashville City Council or, you know, people, like, there's a lot of people in my community that could possibly be great in studio guests, people from the university library system, people, professors, things like that. I'd love to have more people like that on the show. And I feel like the interview with Allison went really well. So, yeah, I'm feeling optimistic about it. Centauratron says, in their copy of Moby Dick, there's 52 pages left after that chapter. Okay, very cool. So, yeah, hopefully y'all are enjoying this. I like how there, you know, one thing I like about this story, and this is also true of Dracula, I've picked 2 novels that have multiple points of view, so that I can kind of do different voices and we can experience different attitudes. It's a fun exercise for me to read stuff like this. And hopefully it's a fun experience for y'all. Except for you zombies. Boo, zombies. I need to go up the water stream. That did not go well. I think we're going to go to this beacon. Oh, I love these Mardi Gras colors at night. I actually just got my Mardi Gras plans locked down this morning, so it was a big day for scheduling. Big day for scheduling today. Do I know the Tennessee Holler people? I think they'd understand the value of a newer gen platform like yours. I don't know them personally. Like, see, I'm in a weird situation where, like, there's a lot of people associated with stuff like that who, like, I used to keep up with on Twitter, but not everything. Like, some of that kind of got lost in the translation to Blue Sky. Like, Twitter was the primary means by which I kept in touch with a lot of local people, and it's kind of in tatters, and it has been for the last year. So that's been a challenge. Over at the Nashville scene and Vanderbilt University Press, though, I do know Betsy Phillips, and who goes by Aunt B on Twitter. And I'd love to have her on the show sometime. It's just kind of a... I haven't... The problem, to some degree, is that just because somebody would be interesting to talk to doesn't mean, like, sometimes because I don't do a lot of interviews, I try to find reasons that it's particularly timely to have the interviewees I have on the show. Like, both times when I had Quinn Murphy on the show, it was because he had a new book coming out, right? And with Joe Mirabello, he also had a new game coming out, right? So, like Betsy's Dynamite Nashville book has been out for a while, so that's not a good hook. Like, I gotta figure out a good... Well, but there's always developments with that case, too. I don't know. Yeah. Right now, I wanted to... My goal for... Normally, I would have, like, 2 guests on the show a year, basically. And my goal is to bring that up to maybe 3 or 4 this year. So, we already had Allison in quarter 1. And so I'm not going to rush having somebody on in quarter 2. But yeah, if I could... I don't necessarily want my HermitCraft show to be, like, every other week there's a guest, right? But, like, I feel like having it as a special thing a few times a year is where I want to target. So I'm still messing around with that, getting a good sense of where that goes, how that goes. Oh man. Okay. Let's see. So we've managed to, in an hour and a half, get all of the Deep Slate converted over. How long is the next chapter? It's not super long. We've got a half hour. So the question is, what are the worthwhile things that we can be doing on this project while we read? Because, yeah, I thought that Deep Slate stuff was going to take the whole 2 hours. It's kind of challenging for me to actually get... count out the blocks and get those in. But I could try doing some of that. If it's too much, then we could switch tasks again. But, like, in the very least, on these front parts here, I know that I'm going to need polished andesite and stone. And how are we for daylight there? Not bad. I'm going to swap out my fireworks, though. But yeah, anybody have any thoughts or anything? I do want to link, for those of you who have been keeping up with my Moby Dick readings, you've probably seen a lot of the Evan Dahm illustrations I've linked. But I did want to link in particular to his illustration of Queequeg's coffin, which is really cool. So if you want to imagine... So Queequeg had, like, decorated the coffin. He had, like, carved in, like, etchings that matched his own tattoos
wait. Oh, hold on. That's not the... Yeah. So, and then, so let me post a link to this particular illustration. So, so there's Queequeg initially putting the etchings in the coffin, and then there's the carpenter painting over them with pitch to make it airtight. So there's two illustrations there. One, Queequeg working by night, the other, the carpenter working by day. But yeah, it's very cool. Okay. So if we are going to do chapter 127, the deck, I need to update the what we're reading link. Pin message. And we're going to unpin at end of stream. Place pin message. Okay. Okay. So, in terms of where the andesite goes versus the stone on this, it looks like the andesite goes on the 5. So this here is 1, 2. So there's the 5. Okay. So, chapter 127 of Moby Dick or the Whale by Herman Melville. The deck. The coffin lay upon 2 line tubs between the vice bench and the open hatchway. The carpenter, caulking its seams, the string of twisted oakum slowly unwinding from a large roll of it placed in the bosom of his frock. Ahab comes slowly from the cabin gangway, and here's Pip following him. Back, lad, I will be with ye again presently. He goes. Not this hand complies with my humor more genially than that boy. Middle aisle of a church, what is here? Life buoy, sir. Mr. Starbuck's orders. Oh, look, sir, beware the hatchway. Thank ye, man. Thy coffin lies handy to the vault. Sir, that hatchway. Oh, so it does, sir, so it does. Art thou not the leg maker? Look, did not this stump come from thy shop? I believe it did, sir. Does the ferrule stand, sir? Well enough, but art thou not also the undertaker? Aye, sir. I patched this thing here as a coffin for Queequeg, but they've set me now to turning it into, something else. Then tell me, art thou not an errant, all-grasping, intermeddlizing, monopolizing, heathenish old scamp, to be one day making legs, and the next day coffins to clap them in, and yet again life buoys out of those same coffins? Thou art as unprincipled as the gods, and as much of a jack of all trades. But I do not mean anything, sir. I do as I do. The gods again? Hark ye, dost thou not ever sing working about a coffin? The Titans, they say, hummed snatches while chipping out the craters for volcanoes,
And the gravedigger in the play sings, spade in hand, dost thou never?
Sing, sir. I sing. I am indifferent enough, sir, for that. But the reason why the gravedigger made music must have been because there was none in his spade, sir. But the caulking mallet is full of it. Hark to it.
Aye, and that's because the lid there's a sounding board, and what in all things makes the sounding board is this: there's naught beneath, and yet a coffin without a body in it rings pretty much the same. Oh, and yet a coffin with a body in it rings pretty much the same, Carpenter. Hast thou ever helped carry a bier and heard the coffin knock against the churchyard gate going in?
Faith, sir, I've...
Faith. What's that?
Why, faith, sir, it's only sort of an exclamation, like, that's all, sir.
Go on.
I was about to say, sir, that...
Art thou a silkworm? Dost thou spin thy own shroud out of thyself? Look at thy bosom. Dispatch and get these traps out of sight.
He goes aft. That was sudden now, but squalls come sudden in hot latitudes. I've heard that the Isle of Albemarle, one of the Galapagos, is cut by the equator right in the middle. Seems to me some sort of equator cuts yon man, too, right in his middle. He's always under the line. Fiery hot, I tell ye. He's looking this way. Come, Oakham, quick, here we go again. The wooden mallet is the cork, and I'm the professor of musical glasses. Tap, tap, tap.
Ahab, to himself. There's a sight, there's a sound, the gray-headed woodpecker tapping the hollow tree. Blind and dumb might well be envied now, see? That thing rests on 2 line tubs full of tow lines. A most malicious wag, that fellow. Rat tat. So man's seconds tick. Oh, how immaterial are all materials. What things real are there but imponderable thoughts? Here's now the very dreaded symbol of grim death, by a mere hap made the expressive sign of help and hope and of most endangered life. A life buoy of a coffin. Does it go further? Can it be that in some spiritual sense the coffin is, after all, but an immortality preserver? I'll think on that, but nah. So far gone am I in the dark side of the earth that its other side, the theoretic bright one, seems but uncertain twilight to me now. Will ye never have done, Carpenter, with that accursed sound? I go below. Let me not see that thing here when I return again. Now then, Pip, we'll talk this over. I do suck most wondrous philosophies from thee. Some unknown conduits from the unknown worlds must empty into thee. And that concludes Chapter 127 of Moby Dick, or The Whale, by Herman Melville, entitled The Deck. Starflower says, Minecraft and reading Moby Dick out loud, truly my dream stream concept. Yeah, it's a little bit harder to read out loud while I'm placing blocks in precise motions like this, but I think it went okay. Stuff like mining sand or removing mountains is definitely easier. Scrabble word, Oakham. There you go. So let's see. Just as a reminder, if y'all are enjoying this stream, we've been going for about 90 minutes, and tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. Okay. So I'm trying to see. I'm just going to skim ahead real quick and see if this next chapter is more suitable for clustering with the chapters we've read already. Or, whoops, wait, what did I do wrong there? Hold on. Oh, I don't know why I did that. Okay. Because I try to, usually we go for about 90 minutes to 2 hours on these things. But, and we've hit the 90-minute mark. And this next chapter looks particularly long. So, let's see. Yeah. I think part of it, yeah, at this point, I don't really have any tasks that are well suited for reading, and we have hit the 90-minute mark. So let's go ahead and call that the last call for tips, and we'll wrap up in about 10 minutes. But yeah, as I'm skimming ahead, I agree with Centauratron in the Discord chat, who says the next chapter might be a good starting point for next week. Yeah, it seems like the next chapter is the inciting incident for the chapters that follow it. And I do try to cluster these chapters in such a way that it's easy to follow for folks coming in, like, on that particular day. Okay, it looks like I've already moved the glass up here, so we're going to grab some of the glass. Well, not that glass. Wait, where did I... Did I use all of the glass? I used all of the glass for the shop. Yeah, we're gonna have to cook some of this sand, is what I'm realizing. Okay, let's quickly empty our inventory of the stone. And yeah, I'm glad I caught this to go get that glass cooking now, because that's gonna make things easier for next week. Or not next week, but next stream. Yeah, okay. Yeah, because I restocked the glass shop. Okay. How are we doing for lava buckets also? I might have to go get more of those as well. So, yeah, we're gonna hang out for a little bit. Does anybody have any thoughts on the chapter we just finished, or the chapters collectively we have read tonight? This morning, afternoon, depending on your time zone? Just gonna dump that there for right now. I think it's interesting that the author isn't just setting us up with a bunch of metaphors that Ahab is oblivious to. I think it's interesting that basically all of the clear signs that he should turn around and all of the, like, boy, that doesn't seem like a great... that symbolism seems foreboding. He's 100% in on it. Like, he's looking at the coffin life buoy thing, and he's like, what? Like, there's a certain level of genre savvy
that Ahab is expressing here that kind of makes it more tragic. You know, in the same way that Stormlight 4 was Brandon Sanderson's Die Hard, I really wonder if the final novel, when he brings it all together at the end, if the final novel is going to be his Moby Dick, and it's just Wit as Ahab on this monomaniacal mission, and everybody around him is just kind of like, oh boy. Lizzie Mack says, "Hello, this is an odd time to stream, ain't it?" I cannot do an Australian accent. Yeah, it is. But my sister's birthday is later this week, and I realized that we are getting together tonight, not later this week, and so I frantically rescheduled the stream. So apologies that this was not on the schedule in advance. That was an oversight on my part. But, like, Melville is not trying to be subtle with his foreshadowing here. Like, even the characters are like, boy, this foreshadows some terrible end. Welcome, House. Yeah, we are in the last 10 minutes of the stream. We are winding down, because the next chapter is going to be the lead-in to a cluster of chapters that will be perfect for us to read together next week. Okay. Let's get it started, huh? We're collecting lava in here. Bum ba dum ba da ba. So much lava, da da. Burning, burning. We're smelting, smelting. Da 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 da. Okay, so that should be enough boxes for that lava. And we're also gonna grab some more fireworks. Did I leave the fireworks box out? No. Okay, we had left some lava over here. We can go grab that. Hal says, I just joined. Are we ending already? Yep, we've been reading for over 90 minutes, and we're at a good stopping point in the novel. Okay. So I need to have a box here. Well, actually several boxes for us to put these into. So then we can just take that like so. Really? Is there no other lava up here? Did we really have it down to just 2 source blocks left? Boy, that does not bode well for my lava supply. Did we do the Metro Madness build yet? No, that's been a scheduling hassle. Trying to get me, Asuma, and Corellis all online at the same time is not easy. Okay, this might just be no source blocks at all left. Well, I don't have a lava dripstone farm thing. We haven't really needed one because there's a bunch of random lava pools kind of throughout this build. There's one now. I could make a farm with dripstone, but I'm good. Okay, so let's go land back down here. Yeah, so that is not as much lava as I was expecting to grab when I showed up with 5 stacks of
or 6 stacks of buckets and several shulkers. But it's all right. Okay. So, let's see. Is that lava over there? Yeah. We'll go grab that one. Was that a single source block left? Might have been. Okay. Well, this is going quickly. Bum ba da bum ba da bum ba da na na. Da da di da 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 da. Why did I mark this pit? Was there lava in this pit? Was there something of value in this pit? There is something of value in this pit. Calcite. Ooh, we have the permit for that. Okay, that's... So we'll come back for that when we are appropriate. We don't have any torches on us right now. Yeah, we could just go get lava from the nether. It's fine. Just doing a quick preliminary check on some things. Okay. So yeah, we'll definitely go get that calcite and restock our calcite shop later. It might be time to start clearing out some more of these. Clearing out some of the beacons too. It's all starting to come together. Kind of transitioning between 2 phases here in this project. Was the lapis on that block one of your original border markers? Nope. Not in that configuration. That was an indication that that crevasse was of value somehow. I don't have like a particularly well-designed system for marking things like that, but like I can just kind of look at something and be like, I know why I placed those blocks in that configuration. I know what that signifies, right? So, okay. So we did get some lava. Okay. That one's got 2. Whoops, don't want sand in there. How did we get sand in our lava hopper? I don't know. Okay. Any of these with less than... Apparently I put a bunch of sand in the wrong hoppers at some point. So that's notable. Okay. So there's a bunch of lava further down the line here. So that's good. Okay. So that also means we have more sand than I thought we had because I screwed up loading this thing at some point. Okay. So if we just put extra lava buckets in there, that'll fill down the line. And then regarding the sand, in some ways it makes sense because we know that the lava is queued up down the line here to just dump the extra sand all the way down the line. Okay. So that's the other thing is, like, we're not frantically out of lava. We have a ton of lava in the system. Okay. Oh, stretching out. Okay. Let's go ahead and refresh, see if we got any last-minute tips rolling in. Doesn't look like it. In that case, I think it is time to send folks on their way. Let's see. Looks like there is a women's tournament in Memphis right now for pinball. So why don't we go ahead and /raid Flipside Memphis. When you get over there, our raid message is howdy y'all, Joe Hill's raid here. Until next time, y'all, this is Joe Hills from Nashville, Tennessee. Keep adventuring. Stop streaming, stop